Welcome one, welcome all to this special new edition of the Fairly KickAss podcast. I'm Jeremy, your doorman to this potentially rat-filled hotel. Joining me in the ethereal studio today are the grooves in my vinyl, the flickers to my flame, the Josephs to my Gordon Levitt, Zach and Dan. How you guys doing tonight?
Dude, never better. Excited to get this project kicked off. And that's Tommy to you, by the way, not Joseph Gordon Levitt.
Oh, got it.
And very confused, just very confused.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Always. It's just a permanent state of being. Well, by now, you're used to us talking about our favorite and least favorite records on a monthly basis, or really on any topic we see fit to bury in our own personal brand of wasted time. If you're tired of our opinions, tough. That's not going away. We're not giving you less of that, but we are going to give it a little bit more focus today as we do a deep dive into a specific artist and their catalog. Today, on the Fairly KickAss Deep Dive, we're going to look at the career and discography of Australian power pop outfit Divinyls. I'm going to admit that before Dan suggested we do this, I could only recall two songs by them. The first one was the obvious popular anthem to intimate private alone time, I Touch Myself. And the other was Pleasure and Pain, which was their first hit in the US. Not really a hit, but like it was the first thing that cracked the Billboard charts in the US. It was, I think it hit like number 120 or something like that. How about you guys? Were you familiar with any of their catalog?
No, for me, it was only I Touch Myself. That was the only song that ever come across my periphery.
Dan?
I mean, it's the same thing, really. It's the only reason we know them at all here in the U.S.
It's true.
Is their anthem to self-love.
Well, Pleasure and Pain was on a soundtrack to something, I think, and that's
it was. It'll come to me.
Well, it's on my thing here at some point. All right, so let's start with the woman who, after writing this, I believe to be one of the more dynamic female pop icons of the 80s, Christina Amphlett. She actually released an autobiography in 2005 called Pleasure and Pain, which I have not read, but I have read excerpts from. And those became the primary source for a lot of this information. Alongside, there was an article in Independent about them. Their Spotify bio had a surprising amount of information in it. And some quick references from their Wikipedia page, mostly just for like name verification and things like that. So Chrissy, as she was known in her youth, ran away from home at a pretty early age. This was primarily to escape an abusive father. There's really, aside from her autobiography, there's not a lot of record on that, but that seems to be the case. So she decided to run away and follow her favorite group, though a cursory search of the magical interwebs didn't tell me who that group was. I kind of really want to know who that was. I think it was probably following her older sister around, who was also a charting Australian artist named Lil Patty, and she had some success in the 60s, but it doesn't say that's who she followed.
Makes you wonder.
And I've never heard anything by Lil Patty either, so that was new to me. Anyway, at the age of 14, she began performing with bands in Melbourne and Sydney, and the Spotify bio actually says she turned up in Sydney, which I loved that phrasing.
Just poof, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here now. And she was performing with like country rock band One Ton Gypsy. Them I'd actually heard something from, but I don't know why. I didn't like it. When she was 17, she left Australia for Europe, traveling around, performing on streets, getting arrested in Spain for busking. Typical kid stuff. And then she went back to Australia, writing songs with a connection to personal pain, strong emotions, and what it's like to have some rough beginnings. That's her song style.
Yeah. As we will come to find out here in the following minutes, how true that holds.
Yeah, exactly. Divinyls actually formed when Jeremy Paul, who is a former bassist of Air Supply, introduced Christina and Mark McEntee. They were seen performing by a filmmaker who then cast them in his movie, Monkey Grip.
Isn't that the craziest thing? Like their first album was actually a soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. That's super. At least a couple of singles from it.
Right.
They started as actors, apparently. That got them their musical career.
And at least the way I've read some of the material is that they wanted Chrissy, and she was like, "Well, I have a band." They're like, "Cool, bring them too."
Right.
Like she's the one they wanted in the film.
Yeah, and everything that I read seems to indicate that the producer had no intention of like having them do the soundtrack as well.
Yeah.
He just liked their image and put them in his movie. But record a soundtrack they did. The single Boys in Town became a top 10 hit in Australia, and the video became that iconic image of the group. That schoolgirl in fishnets, upshot camera angles, all of that bit. She would use that image for quite a long time. In her own words, that image set her free. That was her look. They were signed to Chrysalis Records in such good company as Blondie and Pat Benatar. But Jeremy Paul actually left the band before they recorded their debut album, Desperate. He started a trend of like just a revolving door of personnel, in and out, lots of people.
And if I remember correctly, he left the day before the release of the single of Boys in Town.
Yeah,
so
that's on.
What was he thinking is what I would love to know.
I mean, wouldn't you at least want to hang out for a couple of weeks just to see how the thing goes?
Right. Maybe it's nothing, but maybe they're going to be an international sensation. It's like, you never know, dude. But he's like, pass.
Yeah, well, as I can tell you, bassists with the name Jeremy don't have a good track record with bands.
Do tell.
Anyhow. All right. Well, at this point, they're being billed as a hard rock band, a hard rock act, which is reasonable given their image and sort of their influences. It was hard to call them pop when they had more in common with AC/DC than Bananarama. No comments on that? Wow. Okay.
we were vibing with it. I mean, it's listening to that album. And again, I'm not jumping the gun here at all, but listening to that album versus the future albums that we'll get into, there's a very palpable difference, at least to me, in terms of the power, the force, the edginess is kind of the way I'm, kind of categorized it in my own head, the edginess of that very first album.
What kind of stuff did you enjoy from that first record, from Desperate?
Boys in Town, like you mentioned. I mean, very first track off the record, if memory serves, just an absolute slammer. It kind of just gives you the impression of, and that we actually did this before in our previous podcast of our top 5, like first album, first song for a band, for a discography. And one of the things you guys kept coming back to more than me was like, this really defined that group. This really defined the artist. And I feel like Boys in Town, if you had no idea who Chrissy Amphlett was, if you had no idea who the Divinyls were, like you listen to that song, you're like, okay, I get it now. Yeah. Siren, subtitled Never Let You Go, a solid jam. Take a Chance was really great off of that album as well, I thought.
Nice. How about you, Dan?
Well, I think, and it's honest, I think that Boys in Town did well, but I thought the actual hit off the record was Science Fiction. And to me, that one kind of drones on. I don't know. It just like hard rock, yes, but it's very new wave in as much as there's still plenty of pop sensibility in the whole thing. So like to me, the two best, like the top two are Boys in Town and Siren.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, the record starts with that driving riff and Chrissy's slow burning vocals. And then you get to Siren and it's just another ridiculously catchy song.
Yeah.
With, as I put, Amphlett's machine gun vocals searing through the chorus. And that's going to like, that'll be like, I don't know how you picked up, but that right there is going to be the theme for this band is her vocals and how the rest of the song is built around it. A low-key fave of mine off that one was Victoria, the ballad-ish track that also managed to get in like a bouncy guitar line and still give off this heavy feeling of longing. And then I kept looking for a deep cut because I mean I just looking for a way to divvy these things up, and that was Elsie for me.
I loved Elsie. Elsie's a great tune.
The emotional pivot of the record.
Yeah.
That unexpectedly dark opus accentuated by like the minor keys and the synth hits.
And it's a longer track too.
It is. And it got creepy in the verses.
Yeah. No other track on that album cracks 4 minutes. Elsie clocks in at 6:42.
Yeah. That's good stuff. So they went through a number of lineup changes, producer changes, just a whole lot of changes before they got around to their second album in 1985, which is What a Life. This album is easily my favorite of their recordings, hands down. It's not even close. It has sort of that rawness of emotional hurt that she became known for. but it had a little bit more polish than Desperate, just a little bit. That hypersexuality and power of Amphlett is just pure and potent, and Casual Encounters to me is that perfect indicator track. It has all that in spades, just full. How about you guys?
Yeah, it was, to me, it felt like it still had the power of the vocals of Chrissy Amphlett, which again, like Dan mentioned, will be a recurring theme for us throughout. I thought that What a Life seemed to be more on the pop end of the spectrum than, kind of the edgier rock of Desperate, but no less enjoyable, no less entertaining whatsoever. Pleasure and Pain, I think one of you had mentioned as being one of their two biggest hits from a catalog standpoint.
Yeah.
Great jam. To me, I also loved Heart Telegraph, and Motion was another one that kind of jumped out at me. But as far as the sound goes, yeah, I totally agree. It definitely is more polished than Desperate. I think that Chrissy's vocals are even on better display. I think she gets a little bit more unchained, I guess, for lack of a better term, and just kind of goes for it. And the album's all the better for it.
Yeah, totes.
I guess if I divide up my three again, like you've mentioned, that smash to me was Pleasure and Pain. I think of all the Divinyls tracks, I think that one is the song that most easily gets stuck in my head, even more so than the actual hit, the international hit. It is a blend of new wave and 80s rock, and it just, again, the perfect way to kick off a record with it.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, her vocals again capturing the attitude of the persona, and it's just dripping with raw sensual power.
Yeah, absolutely raw.
I would consider a personal fave Sleeping Beauty as a more restrained Amphlett slides through the tight groove of this pop track. But it isn't to say that she like cut back any of the power. Like she busts out the gravelly voice at the right moments, but it's more traditional, what would be considered like a traditional like pop rock offering, but one that bends the genre to the band instead of the other way around, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I kind of get what you're aiming at there.
I thought I had written something at the time. I was like, yeah, this seems deep. No, this works. But you don't ask me to explain it now. And then I'm actually with you because my deep cut was Casual Encounter.
Yeah.
Hearts, All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You wishes it had a fraction of the power of this song.
Sure.
Nice.
There was one other one that I wanted to kind of call out to, because I feel like it's maybe a foreshadowing of some of the future more experimental sounds that we'll be getting into. And that was the final track, at least in the international version, which was Dear Diary. Lyrically, this song is dark as shit. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think is, something that really is out of place on either of their first two albums. Dear Diary, I had a dream, a serpent came in a cloak of steam. He wraps me tight each coil of night. My heart he bites. Like, come on, man. That's just absolutely just sublime. We don't really visit this side of the Divinyls and really the side of Chrissy Amphlett for maybe an album or two. But when we get back to it, we get back to it.
Yeah. Cool. Unfortunately, this record was not as well received as they had hoped. It only reached number 91 in the US charts. I mean, it made number 4 in Australia, though. So there's that. And critics really enjoyed it. It was very critically thought well of. That was an interesting sentence. I mean, not talk like that no more.
He word good.
God can word good. Okay. Anyhow. So to me, like that would be considered like the first wave of Divinyls stuff. Like you can section off their albums in different things. Those two albums kind of can get lumped together. Their third album, Temperamental, becomes a footnote with good reason, as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't have the swagger of the first two. At least that's my take on it. The hard edge is still kind of there, but with like no swagger, zero cool, and next to zero emotional content. Like it really seemed like she was really reaching for something to sing about on that one. How did you guys feel?
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and I in my notes I kind of had written down experimental. and kind of crossed it out in my head, because this isn't necessarily an experimental album in the sense of, other actual experimental albums, but it is experimental to them.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a pretty significant departure, I agree, from their sound from the first two albums. I think some of it works, like Punksy is a really solid track. Out of Time is weird as hell, but it works. Dirty Love is and Dance of Love, for that matter. Both of them are, really, really solid tracks. But it also doesn't work on a lot of other tracks too, like the title track Temperamental, not that great. Because and Fighting also, not their best work. So it's, they tried something new, which I dig, but I kind of wondered, and I was wondering what you guys thought. Like, do you think Temperamental as an album was a byproduct of the revolving doors you mentioned of, people who aren't Mark McEntee and aren't Chrissy Amplet that come in and out of the band, that there just is no cohesion there? So it's like, let's just throw things at the wall.
I think very well, but it seemed much like What a Life. It had multiple producers. So, when you're trying to do, anything, when you have that many hands involved in the mix, it's hard to get a cohesive feel on a record.
At least with What a Life, though, it felt like the songwriting itself was pretty cohesive. Like they were at least together on what they were writing and doing, and then maybe the production got a little bit right. and that's why the many producers didn't have nearly the effect on that album as it did on Temperamental.
And it's interesting because this was supposed to be the record that broke them in the States. This is what they were pushing for, to be their debut, and this is what it came for. And to be honest, this is the one that I wrote the least amount of.
Ditto. I actually couldn't come up with like we talked about trying to do like a favorite track from each record, and I don't have one for this album. I really I kind of glossed over it.
Kind of like, and I divvied things up: the hit, a personal favorite, and a deep cut. So if you were to pick a hit, maybe Hey Little Boy.
Punksy was the one that they pushed in Australia,
right? I think Hey Little Boy has a little bit more to it. It's a cover of a 60s song that's then gender flipped, and at least it feels like it gives Chrissy something to sink her teeth into from an emotional standpoint. If I had to pick a fave, the opener is at least well paced. It's got a driving riff, guitar riff, but Temperamental is all right. And I think they're was my deep cut. That's the sleazy cut of the record, and Chrissy can just unleash on it.
Yeah. Well, the world actually seems to agree with. We seem to be on the same page that this album didn't slap as much as the earlier two did, and the world seems to agree with us because it only reached number 11 in their home country, and it didn't do anything in the rest of the world. It actually put them over $1 million in debt to Chrysalis, their label. Wow. The label called them a tax write-off and ended their relationship. Yeah, but they let them off the hook for the debt.
That's pretty sweet deal.
Like think about that. Can you imagine a label doing that to anybody now?
Ever.
Yeah, all the label did was release like a hits collection to try to recoup expenses. And that actually worked better than releasing the album because the collection was certified platinum. It's like, I think it's the only one of their records to do that actually is the hits collection.
Australian platinum.
Well, yeah, take it with a grain of sand.
Yeah.
What's the conversion rate from Australian platinum to US platinum?
That's what I was looking for right now.
I don't know.
That's what I was trying to find.
I will say while you're looking that up, I did come across this album. The recording sessions for it actually had my favorite story of the whole thing, the whole write up here, and that is during those studio sessions, they had to switch recording studios in the middle of it because they were getting noise complaints from Neil Diamond, who happened to have been recording in the studio next door.
That's perfect.
That's the best.
Like to have been a fly on that wall.
Right? Like of all the artists, well, you know what they say, Neil, if it's too loud, you're too old.
Well,
you're here first, Neil.
Right. A platinum record in Australia sells 70,000 copies.
Yeah.
It's a 100K in the States.
Something like that.
In the States, and go platinum, I think it's a milli. It's $1 million in the plan.
Lord, I didn't realize.
Yeah. You don't get nothing until you hit 500,000 in the States.
Dang, that's
Man, we
cold.
big.
Around this time, too, Christina made another attempt at acting. She starred with Russell Crowe in an Australian production called Blood Brothers, and I've never seen that.
Huh.
I have never seen it. The only it may have even been the still shot that that I showed you once we were like, yeah, we're gonna do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then showed a still from a promo, like a commercial, and the commercial is talking about her, but there's Russell Crowe front and center on stage.
Yep.
I know nothing about it, just that it was a musical.
Yeah, that was just a weird time for them. I think everything was just weird. Okay, so at this point, leading up to their fourth album, they had completely abandoned the idea of a group. It was just Christina and Mark using whoever they could find to join them in the studio and on the road. They also pretty much became a watered down version of themselves. They took the same career path as, say, Sheryl Crow, leaning hard into the country vibe of their songs, somehow accentuating the Southern drawl that lives inside Christina's voice. So, of course, this is when they would have their biggest hit in the US and the UK, though that may have had more to do with publicity from Virgin Records and sort of a surreal video. And let's talk about that song and video for a minute, as it's the biggest reason that we're able to do what we're doing right now.
It's the song you all know.
It's the song you all know.
Probably the reason you're here.
Yeah, probably. That song is called I Touch Myself. Let's start with the video. To begin with, this overtly sexual lingerie commercial was filmed in a nunnery in Pasadena by a then unknown Michael Bay.
Yeah, you couldn't tell because nothing exploded, but that's a Michael Bay joint.
My brain exploded watching it.
Right.
It is a weird ass video.
Made even more so when you know the background that's a nunnery. That like she is there riding on the stairway of a nunnery, talking about self-pleasuring to the thought of this guy. That's awesome.
But who else could have pulled that off? You know what I mean?
Like nobody. Say what you want. Madonna did not even have that. Madonna didn't have that level of confidence to pull that one off.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Also, they may have been helped out by their relative obscurity in the US at that time. They were like, oh, we would like to film a video in the nunnery. If Madonna had asked to do that, the nuns would have been like, no, we know who she is. That's not happening.
That's true. But it makes you wonder, like how, like, did they just clear out that area? Like, then they weren't just hanging around, and someone finally heard the song and went, "Oh no, what did we do? What have we done?"
Whoops.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Anyhow, for me, this record is the worst. I absolutely,
by far,
it's real bad. Most everything on it is forgettable at best. She also uses the line, "I don't want anybody else," on multiple songs. Telling me that she was pretty much stuck on that idea.
and the interesting thing was, so that's the hook running through I Touch Myself, and then the follow-up single was Love School.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there was originally there was no intro, and then after the song, the version that's hit streaming that we heard had a really short clip of her just a cappella singing "I Don't Want Anyone Else." For whatever reason, they felt that they needed to tie those two songs together, so they added that to the original track.
Just awful.
Yeah.
It is like, I guess sometimes those tie-ins can work, I suppose, but in this case, it just doesn't.
Love School is not as strong of a song.
I disagree. I thought Love School was on every level a better song than I Touch Myself.
I don't know. I thought the writing was a lot weaker.
I'm just so happy that, like, I was really worried as I was doing my write-up and my notes for this. Like, I thought for sure that the fourth album, that the self-titled, why their fourth album is their self-titled album, that's a different story altogether. But like, I was worried that you guys would be like, yeah, I actually thought the fourth album slapped. I actually thought this was pretty good.
Did you?
And then I would have to be like, but I don't think it is. I think this.
I mean, there's stuff there.
I will agree with
parts
you.
to work with.
If Love Was a Gun is a great song.
That is what I was going to say. If Love Was a Gun is my favorite, and actually, in my opinion, only good song on the record. To me, that was the only one.
I did like I'm on Your Side. Not nearly as much as If Love Was a Gun. If Love Was a Gun, it was just a gorgeous, gorgeous song.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
wow. All right. I was actually all right on that one.
On the
Because
album?
Oh no, on that song. Like I liked it, but apparently it was the only one I was listening to. One that I enjoyed would make it all right. The third single off the record. I mean, it's a well-crafted pop song. It fits the mold of the album, and she just melts the track. My deep cut though was Bullet.
Mm, yeah.
I don't know. I thought between the guitar and then just her controlled power, the track just burns.
That's where the line gets blurred, right? Because I've forced myself to have to look at it through the lens of the entire track and kind of take the awesomeness of Chrissy out of, because every track would probably be my favorite if we were looking at
Just her.
just through the
True, but I mean, even like to even take that look, like go back to I Touch Myself and listen to the guitar work that Mark is laying underneath. Like it's muted, but it's impressive.
It is. And I would say that actually I Touch Myself is Chrissy's weakest performance.
Compared
that.
to a lot,
Vocally.
yeah. Oh yeah,
100%.
not just on that record, but on almost the entire discography.
Which says a lot about like what people wanted in a song in, what was that, 92? Is that what that was?
91.
91?
But at the same time, without cribbing from other sites and other critiques, like, does that song become a hit at any other point in pop music? Like,
I doubt it.
It doesn't, like it no. I think that's just a thing, and it's because of how weird the years 1990 and 1991 were in pop music. Like there's and I can't wait to actually do 1991 and my year reviews. Like there's a whole group of artists that only are hit makers in that year.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. And I think like she may have had like a 2-year window leading up to it, right? Like the 89
Maybe.
and 90, maybe, but after
Maybe.
that, absolutely not.
Right, like at that, and that as I'm sure you'll explain to us how things went after 1991, 1992.
Yeah, a little bit.
By the way,
also-
just a
okay.
quick thing for me, because I just looked at the calendar on my laptop. Today is the 30-year anniversary of the release of the album Divinyls.
Perfect.
To the day.
Really?
Yes.
We that was unintentional, y'all.
Damn.
I had no idea until 5 seconds ago. January 29th, 1991.
Wow.
Wow.
All right.
We can add also here that despite the critical acclaim of the record and the success of that single, the album only sold around 35,000 copies.
Wow.
Which was about as much as Temperamental, if memory serves.
Yeah, and it charted pretty modestly and very briefly. So it counts as a hit, but
Right.
it really didn't do that well. Their other albums actually did better, at least in Australia. And they dropped off the face of the earth pretty quickly there. Interestingly enough, their final album isn't available on streaming services like Spotify. And I had to listen to Underworld via YouTube uploads of various quality.
Yeah, that's where the two of you made out on this one. So I had to set this record out because I couldn't find those in time until you shared them with us. Maybe right before we started this, I was like, well, I just have to bow out for that bit of the review.
And yeah, and I will say, like, it's more than it's a little bit of a shame that this album is less widely available than their self-titled record, because I would say it's Chrissy's best lyrics and vocal performance since their first two albums. Like
Without
it's over a decade in between those. She's still really leaning into that sexuality and that country character, but she's actually figured out how to harness it. Which, like, on the self-titled record, she hadn't figured that out yet.
Right.
So I would say that my favorite track on Underworld, and Dan, you said you hadn't really had a chance to listen to this stuff, but my favorite track is Sex Will Keep Us Together.
Yeah, it's just the quintessential, maybe not the quintessential Divinyls track, but definitely the quintessential Chrissy Amplet track.
Yeah, it has all of that raw sexuality to it, like unbridled. It's just right out in front, and she leans hard into it.
Yeah, and I can't remember which one of you mentioned like the ballads, but there are some really solid ballads on this album too.
Yeah.
Come Down to Earth is one of them, and I believe the other one was Save Me.
Yeah,
which is also two just great songs. I'm Jealous, I think, was one of the lead singles, maybe the lead single off the album, and that maybe was my very favorite Divinyl song, like full song.
Wow.
I loved I'm Jealous. Like it was the classic like scorn lover, he left me for her kind of story. Like the story itself was kind of tropey, but
Sure.
just from an emotive standpoint, like this was Chrissy Amphlett at her slap you in the face with her voice best, in my opinion.
Cool.
So I was a huge fan of I'm Jealous.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a quintessential one, I think I would still go with Casual Encounters from What a Life.
Yeah, totally. That just defines her so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of categorized the whole album as like a better version of Divinyls in a way. It was everything that I wished that Divinyls was. The country aspect was kind of off-putting a little bit. I was trying to think of an artist to compare it to, and for those who are kind of familiar with like older, maybe like early 90s country, Diamond Rio.
Yeah.
Obviously
that's actually a really good comparison. What I was coming up with was like transitional Sheryl Crow, like when she did that cover of Sweet Child of Mine that was really bad.
Oh, that was awful. Cheryl, right? Why?
But
yeah, I could
transition
totally
period.
100%, I could see that.
Yeah. All right. So then after Underworld, they sort of aren't a thing really anymore at this point. The band kind of split. And for about 10 years, during which time Christina kind of went back to the stage. She played Judy Garland in Boy from Oz. Mark McGinty, he started a clothing label. Well, worked with a clothing label called Wheels and Dolls Baby, which actually provided clothes for Sarah Michelle Gellar on Buffy. It made clothes for Kate Moss and Jerry Hall, Katy Perry, Scarlett Johansson. So some pretty, stellar clientele there. But being inducted into the Australian Recording Industry Association Hall of Fame, they kind of reunited for some performances and recorded 4 new songs for the Home Bake Festival in 2007. I tried to find live cuts of those songs and I found nothing. So I have no idea what those songs sound like. Apparently there were 4 new tracks in 2007.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's just so mysterious that so much of, the last album, these 4 tracks are just in the ether. They're just nowhere.
Yeah. Well, Chrissy died in 2013 after a battle with breast cancer. She actually couldn't receive chemo treatment for it because she also suffered from multiple sclerosis. And when she passed, a whole bunch of female Aussie artists got together to do a cover of I Touch Myself as a tribute and for cancer awareness. They called it the I Touch Myself Project. And it featured such artists as Olivia Newton-John and Christina's sister, Little Patty. And I think we can do a service here too by putting this stuff sort of somewhere in a description or in a link underneath the thing, the link to the YouTube video, and you can learn more about the organization, educate yourself, and donate to the cause at itouchmyself.org. It's still there. Mark actually decided to try reforming the band in 2018.
Yeah, tell us how that went for him.
Yeah, he looked for a new singer, and then he got pretty well lambasted by fans, for one thing, and Christina's husband and former member of the band, Charles Drayton. He said, you better not, basically. He said it would be, quote unquote, the ultimate disrespect. He said anyone fronting the band that wasn't Chrissy should seek some trustworthy advice. And the project was eventually killed. So that's our show about Divinyls. How are we feeling?
I feel like we went on a roller coaster ride. From every aspect of a band. And you consider the band had 5 records, but I feel like they covered so much more ground than just 5 records worth of material, both musically and historically too. To think of all of the names of people who have played for them. I mean, it's a few dozen different artists besides Mark and Chrissy. One, and apologies if you mentioned him already, but the current band leader of the hit TV show Name That Tune, one Randy Jackson, was actually the bassist on I Touch Myself, and on that, I believe on that entire album, on their 4th album, and several other very talented session musicians as well. So,
oh, and you said her former husband Charlie Drayton was the drummer for the B-52s.
There you go.
Yeah, a cavalcade of people have worked with them.
It's unfortunate that we didn't get to either of those first 3 albums didn't break them over here in the US, because it would have been interesting to see as everything their career arc flowed into the pop. would have been interesting to see what an earlier success, if that would have kept them on the rock and new wave and punk side longer, or if it might have even accelerated their decline, having that one big, would they be the next Haircut 100 at that point, that along that line of a new wave one hit wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll never know.
Right. It's just unfortunate we lost such a talent as Chrissy Amphlett so young as well.
Yeah. I think she was better than what the world saw of her.
Oh yeah.
When they hit, she was much better than what she was given credit for.
Right.
It's a travesty that, at least here in the States, the only song most of us have ever heard her sing was arguably one of her worst songs vocally.
Yeah, I wouldn't even allow arguments against that song being their worst.
And unfortunately the record that supported it didn't feature a whole ton better.
Right.
There wasn't that standout performance on that album. You'd have to go back and do some digging. And in 1991, at best you had that record. The first three probably weren't even imported at that point. So
right. Yeah. Well, I, for one, really enjoyed doing this and would like to keep doing these. So listeners, hit us up on Twitter at Fairly KickAss, Facebook us, leave us some comments at fairlykickass.com, read our blog, and, let us know what you think about how we did and give us some ideas about who to deep dive in the future.
Well, we can say that the next time that we do this project, we will go in a whole different direction.
Oh yeah, so we got to mix it up.
We made a list of artists and periods that we'd like to do, and I put them on a wheel and I spun the wheel, and the artist that comes up. So the next discography deep dive, next Fairly Kick-Ass discography project that we will dive into is that of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony.
And I can't wait.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
Wait a second. I thought you landed on Trip to Tahiti on the wheel.
That was in door number 3.
No, because the first time I hit go back 2 spaces to 1,000 and a spin.
Nice.
So then go the 1,000 spin, got away from the whammy and landed on Bone Thugs.
For the children listening who don't know what we're talking about, ask your parents about Press Your Luck. They'll tell you all about it.
No, it's all good. The Elizabeth Banks version is hot now, apparently.
That is it's solid.
Yeah.
She's no Peter Tomarken.
Who is?
Well, that's okay. I think I need to go find my walker so I can get in.
All right. Good night, everybody.